Thank you very much. I'm just, can you see my slides? Just to check. Do you hear me
We
good
can
enough?
see your slides and we can hear you well.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, welcome everybody to the art of streaming, releasing your creativity with Apache Pulsar and Apache Kafka. So the floor is yours in the beginning, Mary, I would say.
Oh, sure. Yeah, thank you. So yes, welcome everybody. Yes, my name is already introduced, so I'm not going to repeat that. And yeah, but we will kind of give you just a real quick introduction of ourselves. So yeah, so Cole, you can advance the slides. So yes, but first of all, before the introduction, our talk here is really about, not so much like saying one is better or trying to compete, not in that sense. It's just more like we're comparing and laying out, what are the strengths of each one of them, right? And then how to make them work together. I think we're kind of more pacifist, right? It's kind of like trying to make things work together is our goal in here. So Pulsar versus Kafka. But still, we want to ask the question, right? What do you think, Cole? Do you think Pulsar or Kafka is better? What should we do?
I think Kafka of course is better because so much possibilities. And what do you think, Mary?
Yeah, I think there's a good point too that there's reason, but there's also a lot of things that are promising, right? In Pulsar being younger and everything. So,
Let's
yeah.
shall we check ChatGPT or something?
Sure,
Maybe.
why not? Yes, yeah, I was about to say, yeah, that's the the talk of the town now, ChatGPT.
Yeah,
So
yeah, indeed, or another one, or yeah. Oh,
that's right.
I've also had some questions here. Interesting, but yeah,
That's
we are
right.
going to ask like ChatGPT, like what is better?
That's
What's the best streaming platform? Is it Kafka or Pulsar? And you can ask it ChatGPT and all kind. I love this website, and you can just select. It's only one question you have. Oh, it's already gone. Oh, that's a bit. What's better, Kafka or Pulsar? So let's ask it. So yeah, like you see, it's like, that's about the talking about maturity. Kafka is better, and scalability. It's scaled horizontally, and it's more like, it's more a little bit more the favor of Kafka, I think.
Yeah. Oh well. Yes. Well, I have to say, Kafka is a little older, right? Not just little, but it's definitely it got into the market first. So yeah, but Pulsar has a lot of promising things too.
Yeah,
so.
definitely. And we just wanted to show it's not a VS versus, but it's more like a join, I think, right, Mary?
That's right. Yes, we're kind of it's not a fist fight, right? It's more about, how do we actually integrate the two together? Let's kind of bring out the best from both both sides.
Of both worlds. So there's no best, I think, but we can join both.
That's right. So yeah, so now we'll get to the introductory part. I'll just be quick. I'm developer advocate at DataStax, the company that is actually more popular, for is Cassandra platform, the Astra managed cloud platform. So I'm currently doing also not just actually the streaming now, also doing Gen AI, by the way. So anyway, I'm also very active in the Java community. I run the Java users group in Chicago, and I'm also Java champion. And these are the different things I've worked with. And prior to this, I was a developer advocate at IBM for 3.5 years. Yeah. So yeah. And then I'm a passionate advocate, but I was actually an engineer to begin with. So for 20 years or so in Java before I became an advocate. So that's kind of summarizing about who I am. So, and now Cole, it's your turn.
Wow, it's a rich track record, I think. Nice to do this talk with you, Mary.
Thank you.
So my name is Turk. I'm a developer and also community lead and writing. I'm also busy with checking proposals I did for JFall. the DevOps Belgium. I did so reviewing, community reviewing, and I work at Blue IT. It's a part of Adesso. Assignment at Rabobank, and yeah, if you ever are in the Netherlands, come and join one of the meetings of the Utrecht JUG. And I'm talking about Kafka, sustainability, green coding. So check my website for more information, I would say. And this is this has to do with my first talk, the Battle of the IDEs, and I was sketching some Pokemon. But yeah, let's continue.
That's cool.
So how to access this slide deck? We added some QR codes you can scan, and we also share at our Twitter. So follow us, and you can also see we will share the slides. So, but first, we have a poll for you. So please join at slido.com with the number. And we are just wondering, like, what are you using? Are you using Kafka? Or maybe are you using Pulsar, another streaming platform, or nothing, but you're interested? So, join at slido.com, and I would love to see some votes here. Okay, interesting. Nothing but interested.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So we can, using Kafka.
Oh, yes, we're using.
The votes are coming in. That's nice.
Ah.
Yeah, you need to do some promotion, Mary. I think
That's true.
we can handle it. It's nice to know what everybody is using, or it's just interested. So the next question is, why are you here? So that's the next question. Like, hey, why are you interested? Are you interested in Apache Kafka piece, the Pulsar? Maybe only the comparison, code samples also.
Oh, more interested too in Pulsar. So, yeah.
That's also nice. That's something nice that we can more look at. Like we will go in depth some more, the comparison, and of course some Pulsar. So less time for Kafka and some code samples. Good to know. So we are going to talk more about the comparison. Thank you for the information here. So more Pulsar. So before I'm going to you, Mary. The first question is what's in it for me? So we are going to choose which streaming framework suits your case. So is Pulsar maybe the better choice, or Kafka? We are going to create, or I should show you some code samples, because creation, it's taking some longer time. And how do you stream like a pro? Not like YouTube, but really like a pro, with functions and streams for Pulsar. So streams is Kafka and functions is Pulsar. So welcome into a streaming world. The possibilities are endless. The question is Kafka or Pulsar? Yeah, we're not talking about Franz Kafka. It was a novelist in the previous century, but we're going to talk also not about Pulsar, right, Mary?
Yeah, that's right. Not about the Pulsar star, but Pulsar, Apache Pulsar.
Before we're going to do some comparison here. So like what you see here is the Louvre. You see the big building from the past. You can see it like Kafka. It's mature. Already a lot of people are using it, or organizations. And Pulsar is more the pyramid in the middle. It's state of the art. Not everybody is liking that, but it's really useful also. And it also has its own use cases. So you can see it like that. So there's more information available about Kafka than Pulsar, but nowadays you can ask everything also to ChatGPT. So that's not the point anymore. So the uses of Pulsar, Mary.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, so you may wonder too, like who are using, each one of them. But of course, with Kafka, I think there are just numerous companies now. Also from my talking experience too last year, or not last year, it's still 2023, but it's mostly folks are using Kafka. But the thing is though, with Pulsar, it is also a significant group of people too, even though our company. So on the left side, you can see, right, there's some of the big names. Yahoo. Yahoo is the original company, their team from there that invented Pulsar. So they are still using it too. And specifically, the one actually in Japan is using quite heavily. And then Splunk and Verizon. So yeah, so these are just a couple names that are bigger names. So if you're interested, you can scan the code and just to see more about it too. And then whereas on Kafka's side, as you can see, perhaps this is just, a tiny percentage of the ones that they are using. So these are the example, like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely. The Pulsar is not new. It's already used by a lot of good companies. So definitely, you can try it.
That's right. Yep.
So let's talk about Pulsar. Mary, can you tell me more about
Sure.
Pulsar, please?
Yeah, okay, we can start talking about Pulsar. I mean, presumably, some of you are, I guess, from the poll, some of you no one is actually using it, but you have definitely heard about it, presumably. So it is, if I describe it, I want to describe it as a very fast and scalable message broker and event streaming platform, and also kind of more kind of catered for the cloud native environment too. So that's what essentially it is. If I summarize it, right, in a short one sentence, kind of few sentences. So yeah, and then let's take a look too to see what is making it, having it such capability. So yeah, so if you can go to the next slide, yeah. Okay, so first of all, just to highlight, right, Pulsar, one kind of feature, the design of it is that, as you know, right, with message broker messaging systems, what to do with all those messages is not just like you pass the messages and they are gone, but in this case, Pulsar, you can think of it more like it has the persistence side of it to store all of your messages too. So the log messages. So rather than Pulsar storing them, it doesn't want to manage that because as such, it's kind of another kind of heavy task too, and takes up a lot of resources and is Pulsar's brain power. So it actually uses Apache Bookkeeper, another Apache project, open source, to manage the log. So think of it kind of a subsystem, and Bookkeeper is in its own project and in the Apache ecosystem. So, and it's very efficient, and it's kind of uses like segments to kind of segment off all, kind of organize all of the log messages too. So. And then another feature too is really kind of very useful, especially in a cloud native type of environment, is multi-tenancy. So think of all the messages too, like in general, most of the, I can kind of speak the messaging systems, right? All of your messages are just messages come through the system over the wire. And then you as a application, designer, you have to manage how do you categorize all of your messages or kind of store them or organize it essentially. But in Pulsar too, it already naturally built in the multi-tenancy feature of it. So think of this feature, especially in a cloud environment, you have the same cluster, but then inside it, you can house, different units of it kind of operating. But in this case too, that's what happened. These are Pulsar, runtime Pulsar cluster, you have these tenants. And I'm comparing this as like an apartment building or some building in which you have different units of categorization of message topics, for example. So that's what it kind of makes it also very efficient, kind of easier to manage all of your messages too. So yeah. And another feature of Pulsar is, especially if you're working with large, in a corporation that involves, multi-data centers in all over the world or different just regions, or centers within a region. It has this geo-replication feature also built in, essentially for distributed data centers too. And it handles all of the things for you. And it's more like you don't, let's say as an application developer's architect, you're less concerned having had to manage how do you replicate data between the different centers. And there are just, you can just kind of essentially use configuration to have, to configure how your data would be needed to be replicate, within your cluster, within your ecosystem too. And so that this is also a very good feature that Pulsar has naturally, kind of natively too. So. Okay, and this one, I think it's what we talk about is the multi-tier, kind of tiered storage offset. So essentially, too, as you know, message systems, you have messages that essentially comes in, and sometimes too the messages are not processed, and or they become kind of cold and like that. So rather than having messages, all of the messages kind of taking up space and also costing you more, running in the main file system, it's basically, it has also this feature that you can kind of also configure it so then it has like a tiered storage kind of way of managing all of your messages. So when messages becomes kind of cold, not active for a certain period of time, then it will be moved off to kind of another tiered storage in which, for example, S3 buckets and like that. So it will cost less for you. So in the meantime, they're not, completely eating up a lot of resources in your main area too. So, yeah. Okay. Okay, so here to just quickly share with you a couple books too about Apache Pulsar. These are, left side, but I wanted to highlight too, these are mostly, from O'Reilly, the publisher, Manning, A-Press, and the one and the third, or the second one to your right, Chris Bartholomew is our director of engineering, one of our groups there. And currently he's actually working more with the LLMs now. Everybody is Gen AI. So, but anyway, he's still he started the Kesk, that company that's based in Canada and then it's acquired by DataStax. So now he's there, but he wrote this book, Apache Pulsar versus Apache Kafka. So I'd like to encourage you to find that book and read about it too. So, and then of course the other publications too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. That gives us some more insights about Pulsar. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit also about Kafka. Like, why should you use the established building like on the Louvre? Why? There are a lot of books that you can read. One of my favorite is this one, Effective Kafka, but Kafka Streams. There are a lot of books, and if you want to know more, there's also a QR code. What really cool is of Kafka is that what you also have in Pulsar, Mary will also say that, but that you can connect different systems with each other. Like if I have an Oracle database and I want to put some stuff into GraphQL or not GraphQL to another database, that's possible with Kafka Connect. Like you have a kind of building pipeline that's connecting two systems with each other, and that you can do with Kafka Connect, for example. But you can also use Kafka Streams, and Streams is more like you have a batch of records from any system, from everywhere. It's big data. Only use Kafka, I would say, if you're using big data. Don't use it if you only have a 10 message in a minute or something. Like, really think about why should I use Kafka Streams, because I'm working at a bank and we need to read transactions. So you can already imagine we have billions of transactions. Hey, that's big data. And maybe we should try Kafka Streams or Pulsar or whatever, some streaming technology. And with Kafka, you also have KSQL. You can also look into your topic, like a SQL query, and you can just look at it. I will dive also into the Kafka cluster. I talked a little bit about Kafka Streams API, Kafka Connect, and this is just a consumer-producer mechanism. So let's deep dive into the cluster. How does that work? Within Kafka, you have a cluster and some producers and consumers and a schema registry, and it's checked by Zookeeper, like if it's still alive or not. I need to also to have a little drink. Sorry about that. So yeah, you have a producer and you have a consumer. You send some messages, and that can be a string. So you don't need a schema registry. But if you have an object like an account, a payment account or something, or you have a value like the transaction, you can manage all those objects in a schema registry and give it version names and or version IDs, and you can manage it. So that's why you can use a schema registry. And yeah, within a cluster, you have brokers, and one of those brokers has your topic, and it's consisting about one petition. If it's one petition, it's just going to sequentially pick up your messages. But mostly you want to have multiple petitions, like you want to have it processed as fast as possible. So you have 3 petitions. And it consists about, yeah, every topic can live on an, yeah, every message there's an offset of it. So you have an offset 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it knows where you are, and that's really the strength of Kafka, I think. There's also some quick start. Also check my GitHub, codeturk.nl. There are some quick starts about Kafka Docker containers, so you can try it out yourself. So Mary, let's compare both architectures now.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So yes, let's kind of take a look into it, right? So this one, okay, so this is actually Cole's idea to use this picture, and I forgot what the picture is supposed to be.
Yeah, multiple bookkeepers, right?
That's right. We're talking about, yes, Bookkeeper. So Bookkeeper too, again, you know, Apache Bookkeeper is used by Apache Pulsar to manage all of the log messages, and as such too, basically, you know, log messages come, you know, in bulk too, because as you know, messages travel fast, and then when you send messages, they're usually, you know, in huge volumes. So also too, and in this case, right, we're persisting them, and Bookkeeper is the one that's kind of responsible for it. And it's actually for Pulsar too, is using RockDB behind the scenes, right? Kind of, it's not talked about because something is like infrastructural behind the scenes. So anyway, they all of the messages are essentially being managed, you know, kind of segment off too. So it's a very segmented approach. It's very organized, and this helps for Bookkeeper to be able to look up messages kind of more efficiently when they're well organized. So yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty nice. And you can also add bookkeepers, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Also, another thing, of course, too, for Bookkeeper is that when you spin up in a cluster Pulsar, it's usually you want to have like 3 instances of Bookkeeper running too. So that's kind of the usual kind of rule of thumb too. You have 3, but you can have more as well. And so they are called bookies, right? Each operating unit, but they together operate as the Bookkeeper kind of runtime, so to speak, that manage all of the log messages too. So yes, that's right. Thank you. Cool. Okay, so yeah, so now kind of bring in this picture too, if we want to take a look kind of more conceptually too. On the left side is Apache Kafka. So that's kind of a logical, as you can see, you know, it's like all the messages is Kafka managing itself, and it's basically the broker that manages all of the, you know, distributed messaging. They are all partitioned off and like that. Whereas like if you take a look then into the right side. So again, you know, if we compare this aspect, it would be segment-centric type of approach design of Pulsar and the Bookkeeper system. So they kind of work hand in hand. So all of the log segments, they are replicated to configurable number of bookies too. So again, replication, and in this particular example is like 3 of the bookies in here. And then it also then communicate with the brokers too. And usually, right, in a cluster, you have multiple like brokers that are managing, so it increased throughput as well. And so are all the topics also being partitioned and assigned to different brokers as well. So is this kind of a very organized type of design, it kind of built into the Pulsar and Bookkeeper system. So yeah, so if you're interested, you can read more here. We don't have time to get into all of the details in here. And then another thing I think about Bookkeeper, the architecture side, as I also mentioned, is really the multi-tenancy. aspect of Pulsar too. And again, multi-tenancy, essentially too, we're talking about is, if I compare, right, make an analogy, it would be like an apartment building in which, the building itself is one unit, but inside each one of them, there are different units too, and they are all kind of independent of each other. So then you don't step over, and there's also essentially too privacy of data that's kind of all grouped by itself. So then they don't interfere with one another like an apartment building. And with this kind of approach is also, kind of like to point out a use case would be like, let's say you run a data center, you are hosting, a lot of companies that they need their systems in a cloud, kind of operating environment. So that ecosystem is like, you have each companies being assigned to some as its own independent tenants. So then you still physically run the same cluster or kind of group of clusters that's logical together, but they are all kind of operating independently. So this actually is also an illustrated kind of conceptual picture of this multi-tenancy concepts in here, in which Pulsar, you see a Pulsar cluster, and then even within a company, you can have different departments. They don't interfere each other with all of the messages that they each are getting. Say in this example, it's like a finance department has its own, kind of managing of its own messages that comes in its own namespace of the message queues or kind of message topics, right? And like that. And so like say a marketing department, product department, all of these things and so on and so forth. So, yep. Okay, and this one I think is Cole. Yeah, you talk about
yeah,
this one.
sure. Yeah, it's interesting to see that Pulsar is very scalable if you compare it to Kafka, and you have the bookkeepers, of course. And I like the multi-tenancy that you have. That you have a different department, finance, and it's very separated. I like that. What I like about Kafka is the offset management. If something is going wrong, like your ice cream is falling down, then you want to go back to a certain point of time. With Kafka, you can, because there's an offset. You can say go and offset before that. For that, you have different helpers, admin helpers you can use to change, or if there's an exception, it will fail, and you can say like, hey, recover from that, or you can fix the bugs, and it will continue if you start up again. So no messages are lost. So that's very important. For example, for a big bank, like you don't want to have payments to be lost. And Kafka is really usable for that. Mm-hmm. So, how long do we have? We have still some minutes. I'm going very fast to the Kafka points. I have here an example. The basic Kafka, it's just a Kafka listener. And in Pulsar, you have also something like that. Like you have a consumer, and you also have a Pulsar listener there. So, and like you have also like in Spring Boot, I'm giving here an example of Spring, of course. You have kind of listeners. That's very powerful. You also have other kind of listeners you can use. And the only thing you need to do for Pulsar is to use, where is it? This one? Oh, I forgot to update the dependency, but there's a 1.0 or the 1.1 dependency, I guess, right, Mary?
Yeah. Yes, actually, they just had a major update to it. I think it's like 1.02. But anyway, yes, there should be an update to it at this point.
So that's more or less a little bit the same if you compare it with Kafka. Like it's really usable. You can just use a Pulsar listener or a Kafka listener and send your messages or consume your messages. Like within Kafka, you have something, if you want to produce something, you have a producer with a Kafka template. And you can already guess, in Pulsar, you can also do it like a producer, but then you have a Pulsar template and you can call the send function. So those are very similar. But what is interesting is the most differences between those, right? Within Kafka, you have streams. Also very quick, I will show it. That's just a topology. There's a set of streams. You have a payment stream, for example, or a fraud stream. And you can, sorry for you don't see the colors, but you have a topology and you have different streams on it. And you can have something like the Streams API within Java, and you have it also for Kafka. So you can say, hey, pick me a message like, hey, do a system out print line or log debug or something, right? You can join, so you can join the balance with the payment to check if you have balance. You can filter, you can map, and you can send it to another topic if you want. So that's the power of streams. It's very fast. It's doing it in bunches, like in batches, sorry. And that's what I love about Kafka Streams. And Pulsar is very handy if you look to functions. So also you have functions, you have the Pulsar Functions API, and you can compare it a little bit to AWS, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mary. And you can just, you don't need Spring Boot or something. You can just set your logic you need. Like, hey, I go to send a payment to system B. And that's all it does. It's going to process a message. It's just a kind of Lambda. You can upload it to data stacks. And do you want to add something, Mary, maybe? Yeah.
I think you already explained it well in there. I think, so that's right. So it is quite efficient too. I mean, you don't need a whole lot of coding because the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure, all of these will handle all of the scalability things for you too. So
I need to add this to my sustainability talk also, because this is very sustainable, because you only use the things you use, like in the cloud, like very minimal. You don't need the frameworks you normally use. So that's, you only need implement functions, right? So so let's go back. So here. So Mary, tell us more about Pulsar Functions.
Pulsar Functions. Okay, sure. So let's kind of really quick now, because our time is limited here. But let me first kind of point out too, we talk about functional style serverless type of capability that you can use, in Pulsar. And essentially, we're talking about when you build a data pipeline, you can think of function, is there to transform the data as the data travels through the pipeline. So just an illustration of, looking at the data is really all about data that's flowing through your data pipeline. And think of the source is like the water that you turn on the faucet, it kind of comes out, and then you travel is like through the wire, for example, and here is a water pipe, and then it gets into some station in which you would transform, enhance, and remove impurities of water. Likewise too, in functional kind of sense is that you have different, functions there to massage the data, to filter, do whatever you need. And then when you're ready, the data that's ready to send back as a response or to another data pipeline, and it will come out as another water, and that will be collected in a sink. And the sink can be turned into another source for another pipeline as well. So that's kind of like the illustrating this data pipeline concept. So okay, so I think this thing too, we're kind of talking about what Co is based in Netherlands. So I wanted to kind of talk about maybe some use case. So this is, Netherlands is famous for the windmills and all of these tulips in the spring. And so anyway, also the cows too. And so I thought, this would be kind of a good use case. Let's say, right, we're talking about message broker. You can actually, kind of use a message broker to help you. Let's say you have tons of cows and it's hard to manage them, and you can actually have these devices that you put on your cows or your cattle, right? And so they can be roaming around the hillside, all of these things, and then you need to find them, you can't, so you can actually use devices to track where your cows would be in this case. And using message broker, you can be sending the GPS location to some server somewhere too. So this is just an interesting kind of creative use of technology, modern technology. But of course, it can also cost money because you need to maintain your servers, all of these, but that's another question. But it's certainly kind of a very useful kind of cases. So, yeah.
So let's talk about data stacks, because that was the next one. Sorry, I just switched it because there was the data stacks things. So yeah, what Mary said, you have different tenants. Like I created one tenant with world, but you can imagine that you can put it finance here of another department. So this is a streaming tenant, and it's pretty nice if you want to see only the things of the world or the finance or whatever. So yeah, this is DataStax. You can $25. It's free, so you can try it out. So you don't need to have credit cards. So you can just try it out, Pulsar, if it's something for your organization or not. So yeah, you have all kind of examples: Java, Python, Golang, Node, everything. So that's pretty cool. And we talked about functions. And like we created a function like send payment, and we added it here because you can create it also, like connect, and you can select your jar. We just created the function jar, and it's logging here like, hey, processing the message, and that's pretty powerful, I think. And
Yes,
yeah,
totally.
right.
Yes, exactly. So yes, you can kind of think of you write once and it can be deployed to the infrastructure. This Astra streaming is actually our product name, but it's Pulsar underneath the hood. And basically the infrastructure will take care of scalability, scaling it accordingly too. So yes, so it is. This is how you can do it. You can also do it on the command line, but Ko has kind of illustrating it in using our Astra streaming platform. So
yeah. So yeah, that's pretty nice. You can also create some sources, some things, like you can say, like in Kafka you have topics, and in Pulsar they talking more about things, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, we're talking about things. Yeah,
And yeah, I'm just also created a namespace with Kafka and Pulsar. So you can see, like in Kafka, I have 6 topics, and I also created one at Pulsar, and they can perfectly work together. So that's pretty cool. So,
yes.
but yeah, Mary, you can, yeah, it's more something you are going to talk about, I think. We have talked about DataStax.
Fine. Yeah.
So yeah, let's bridge those two together, Mary.
That's right. So there are different ways you can make it work together. And I think that's the beauty of like building data pipelines when you have all of the components independently, but they are all independent. You can kind of integrate them together. They're loosely coupled together. And so now in DataStax, well, in this case, Ko is doing it, and you can still kind of connect them because each of them, let's say Kafka topic is just an endpoint. You can kind of connect them just like that. But on the other hand, if you like an API that assists you, and we also from DataStax we have this Starlight API. These are all open source too, and it enables you. There's also a Kafka Starlight for Kafka, in which is basically we talk natively to Kafka as well. So you can use this API to help you to integrate both Pulsar and Kafka apps together too. So essentially it's a drop-in replacement, right, for existing messaging and streaming platforms. And so you don't need to like unlearn your thing. You can continue using your Kafka. So another thing too, wanting to point out is that with this kind of data pipeline kind of approaches, we're talking about we need connectors to be able to connect to different, vendors, products and libraries, all of these things. So in Pulsar's case is that we have a very rich ecosystem of connectors and clients. So these are like grouped into 5 categories. As you can see, lots of databases, including our own Cassandra, Astra to Pulsar can work with. And then there's also messaging streaming workflow system like Kafka. It's also highlighted here, RabbitMQ, all of your favorite, kind of modern streaming or near modern streaming is also there. IoT, MQTT, for example. And it supports, a lot of language clients too, such as, not just, with Java or Python or Go, but you can do it Visual Basic Client or, other kind of node.
Did you say Visual Basic?
Yeah, I know. It's very so yeah, and also like Rust and Ruby, all of these is actually supported too. So you can kind of work with the Pulsar runtime using different language clients as well. So very flexible. So yep.
So I'm hungry now. It's almost eating time here.
That's right. Yes. Okay, so now we kind of do a quick summarize, right? We've been talking about maybe a bit more jumping back and forth, but it's kind of essentially trying to blend the two together, bring out the best of both worlds. So if you kind of ask, why Apache Pulsar, I'd say, because it's got better multi-tenancy support. It's actually quite good too with this multi-tenancy, is make it so efficient. You don't need to worry. It will categorize all of your messages for you, natively. And then, of course, the geo replication, if you kind of ever work in a big company enterprise, all these data centers, and it's also built in, you can use configuration pretty much to manage that. And also too, essentially is horizontally scalable with the cold data offset, the tiered storage offload that I described. And then also too, you can build your own connectors too. I kind of show about some of the pre-configured connectors. You can essentially use a Pulsar IO feature. It has its own kind of subset of library APIs in there to build your own connectors. Let's say connecting to something that you have proprietary, or some things that we don't already have a connector for. And then there's also features such as Pulsar Schema that will manage, essentially help you to, anytime you're doing message transfer, we're talking about data, you need to serialize and deserialize all of these things, right? Otherwise, you have to handle your data as byte arrays, which is kind of, getting into the lower level stuff, and, it kind of takes time away, more mundane, so to speak. So you can leverage on Pulsar Schema, so then you don't need to worry about conversion as much in there. And besides, your payload, the data can change over time. So you can use the Pulsar Schema can help you to kind of do version control of your data as they grow and shrink and evolve over time. So that's Pulsar. And then there's Kafka, right? And Cole, is this your turn to talk about Apache
Yeah,
Kafka?
sure. You can also say like why you like Apache Kafka so much. No, just kidding. I think Kafka, it's a large and mature community. So there are a lot of examples within the internet. But what I like about Kafka a little bit more, if you compare it to Pulsar, for example, like the monitoring tools, I think that is also going better. But yeah, in Kafka you have tools like in Confluent or like in other platforms. You have some monitoring tools, and that's something that's Kafka good in. I think there are different flavors to connect to other systems. Although I like it maybe more like the connected thing in Pulsar, because I can still use my Kafka Streams API and connect it with Pulsar and have the benefits of Pulsar also. So that's really nice from a developer point of view. The offset management is Kafka pretty good in it. I don't know how that works within Pulsar, but within Kafka, I think it's really great.
Yeah. Just a note too, Pulsar doesn't have the same concept as offset. We use like a reader interface, for navigating, but that's another talk. So, okay.
Yeah, that's maybe, if you want to know more about that, it's possible on a different way, I think. Ask Mary what to say. Yeah, functions.
Sure. Yeah. So, okay, now we get into the, functions, as I earlier described to about the data pipeline, all of these things. And think of Pulsar functions enable your system, your apps to actually have, a serverless computing framework, because essentially, right, you write functions, as we quickly show you, code show you how you can quickly implement your functions and then write once, deploy it, and let Pulsar manage in this case. Or in this case, at our company, we have Astra Streaming that manages things for you in the cluster. So, yeah.
Yeah, we have 1 minute left, so we are going to wrap up a little bit. Kafka Streams, what I said, it's really nice because you have the records in batches and that kind of things. It's well integrated with Spring Boot and that kind of systems, and it's like the Java Streams API. So use the best of both worlds, I would say, function and streams. They are very powerful, I think. Yep. So you can do the last word this time, Mary.
Oh, okay. All right. So key takeaways, right? So kind of use Pulsar. I think Apache Pulsar has probably come up more kind of ready for the cloud native. So if you kind of already operating in the cloud, you probably want to think of using Pulsar in this case with some of the features. Although kind of Kafka here, we say it's got better like monitoring capability in it. It's just because I think Kafka is just more mature, came out first, and has all of the kind of community things that are contributing to that ecosystem. So it is probably, yeah, it is true too in that case. And also too, there are also developer tools. And I think on Kafka side, I also have to say, I noticed there are more available like user contributed like open source tools, because Pulsar too is also not as used as much and also newer, a bit newer too. So yeah, so these are kind of some of the key takeaways. You can always kind of blend the two together in your ecosystem accordingly too. So. Yes, so I think then it comes, I think we're right on time. So thank you very much again for having joined us today, me and Ko. And again, these are the two QR code, the right side code and the left side are the slides. And so if you'd like to get a copy of the slide deck and also look at the code that Ko has demonstrated. Funny. Nice. So yeah, so thank you very much. And these are the different links, as to how you can get a hold of us. And Ko is on the, the top few ones, and me at the bottom few ones too. So thank you.
I want to thank you, Mary, also, because this is one of our last talks together, I hope not, but it looks like. So I want to also thank you, Mary, because it was really a wonderful trip, and I learned a lot. I hope you also learned a lot.
I'm the same to learn a lot about Kafka from you, having used it a lot. So thank you so much again, and please stay connected. Connect us on Twitter or X and LinkedIn, and I have my Discord server as well. So please continue in your journey. Good luck to all of you with your streaming needs, and also if you want Gen AI, I also have Gen AI now. Everybody's doing Gen AI. So all of the LLMs, we actually have a Langstream open source that we actually have built out event streaming and Gen AI app too. So talk to me if you're interested in that too. So
So this wraps it up. Thank you all. If you have questions, please in the chat or follow us on Twitter and ask your questions.